We have Kuldeep from Walmart, who will shed light on data security and privacy policies worldwide. With extensive experience in developing cutting edge data platforms, Kuldeep brings over 5 years of expertise in big data analytics and the cloud in various domains such as capital markets, insurance, fintech, and medtech. His proficiency lies in designing scalable and optimized data pipelines for batch processing and real time streaming, utilizing modern cloud platforms. He has even developed a batch and real time streaming pipelines. And before moving on to the talk, I would like to remind you folks to use the Q&A section to post your questions. And in parallelly in track 1, we have a talk by Sankalp about container security in AWS. If you wish to join the track, please to hear about container security. Here, Kuldeep would be speaking about data security and privacy policies worldwide. So we are eager to hear your insights. Kuldeep, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Kuldeep and I'll be speaking mostly on the data security, which is particularly can be related to your real life plus can be related to a developer life. So I'm a data engineer and I am mostly concerned about the data security, which is particularly on the developer side, plus how are we using the data. So the first point is like, how are we using data security in real life? Like, for example, if you are using any Instagram, your email or anything in your real life, your main problem is like your data should be secure. Who is knowing your information? The company is knowing the information, or the cookies have been used by someone else, or anything related to your personal data information. So most of the companies will implement a lot of privacy policies, firewalls, encryptions. For if you are using a cloud, they will be using particularly access controls and multi-factor authentication for logging into the system. And there are different things which you will be using. The scope of the talk is mostly around the facts, like particularly what has happened with respect to data security, what companies had faced earlier in the history, like if your website or your data is not secure, how companies has faced those legal action, compliance action with respect to data. So if you are working with particularly with big data, you will be getting a lot of data with respect to uh, a lot of things, maybe healthcare, maybe insurance, maybe investment banking, a lot of data. And you must be you must need to be sure like how you can use those data and how you can put it in the cloud, how you can put it on the system, how you can put it on the platform. So it is very necessary for a data engineer or for a data scientist or anyone who is using those big data to know all the policies, like what is the policy in what country, what kind of data you are using, and what kind of regulations are applied on those data. So we will start just with some of the examples, history, and then we will end the talk particularly with how can we ensure in our organization or as a developer to ensure all of this, particularly policies or data privacy frameworks. So earlier, like right now, the world is totally interconnected. So particularly, for example, we have Facebook, we have lots of social media platforms, and particularly we had the Equifax breach. So Equifax breach was happened particularly in 2017, and this was mostly related to financial information. This has happened in US. So this breach has happened in US, where the data of millions of customers have been breached, and mostly the personal information such as social security numbers and their addresses, driver license, and all of these things were made publicly and used by different organizations basically. There was one more breach, basically Cambridge Analytica. Many of you have heard about it. So this was basically with related to Facebook. The main point here is like this breach has been happened, the data has been made public, all your personal information has been public. The main point is because of this, a lot of frameworks and rules, a lot of rules and regulations have been come up in the system by a government, by different countries. So we will be discussing more throughout that. So this is just a brief history. Like a lot of companies has faced breaches in the history. Like for example, Yahoo, the 3 billion users data were compromised, and then they were having the talk with Verizon. After that, like there are a lot of things like with Aadhaar card in India, with Twitter, with Microsoft, with Facebook, a lot of things have been compromised and a lot of data has been compromised with respect to only the personal information. And because of that, we had come with a lot of privacy policies. So we will be discussing some of the privacy policies and how they are being implemented, or how can you make sure, like if you are working with cloud, if you are working with data, are you compliant with those policies, or are you not compliant, or are your organization particularly been using those policies? So the first is GDPR. This is designed particularly to control over personal data for the EU residents, particularly the Europe. So particularly, you have to take a consent and from the individuals before collecting all the information. So this is particularly happened with European policies and everything. So this is the first policy. The second one is CCPA. CCPA is mostly related to California Consumer Privacy Act. And here the CCPA is particularly applies to businesses that do business in California, plus who collect personal information of the California residents. So particularly here I have mentioned like the revenue is over 25 million, but this applies to most of the companies where if they are using a personal data of any of the company. For example, if you are using a data of users for a trading, like for example, if you have been assigned some of the stocks, they are also being assigned, you will be using a personal data plus a lot of financial data. The other one is HIPAA. This is designed mostly for the healthcare. This is Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act. This is particularly with respect to healthcare, health plans, and health providers, particularly health insurance plus health data. So, for example, if you have been working with any of the healthcare data, so you have to be particularly compliant to that. Plus, just for example, if you have been working recently, the COVID happened. So if for the COVID, you would be collecting a data mostly for clinical trial feasibility analysis. So for that, you will be collecting a data for a lot of people, a lot of information with respect to gender and personal information also, like what kind of diseases they had in history and a lot of things. So this kind of data, a lot of organizations are using, and they should be compliant to this kind of frameworks. The other one is Shield. This is particularly designed particularly for New York, stop hacks and improve electronic data security. We call it mostly as it. This was introduced in 2019. So it covers entities which are required to notify individuals, mostly on the New York state, when unauthorized access has been given to a private information. So mostly with respect to vendor contracts, risk assessments, and if some organization is using a data, are they disposing the data at a particular time? Those kind of things. PIPL is mostly similar to GDPR, but this is mostly for China region, where they have their own policies with respect to their data. They do not want their data to be saved on any international cloud or any international endpoint also. So we have to comply with that. This applies also to cloud. Like you cannot put up the China's information to other international cloud or other international locations, basically. The other one is comprehensive capital analysis and review. This mostly stands for capital analysis and review. It is the most important component for post-financial crisis regulatory reforms aimed at ensuring the stability of banking sector and protecting the broader financial system. So this is also an example where we have to comply with this if we are using any financial information in a broader perspective. So this is Sarbanes-Oxley. This is mostly related to particularly the US, where legislation happened with respect to frauds and scandals. So it is also known as SOX. It plays a greater responsibility, particularly for the audit committees and executives. Like, for example, the CEO or CFO of a company have to put a audit, and they have to give a financial information with respect to public, with respect to the media. Then that should not be anything misleading. So this happened with respect to that, and they have many laws with respect to the financial information of a company, like if it is a public company or if it is a private. So they had to put up a financial information outside. So this law is particularly related to that. So the other one is data protection bill. So this has been applied mostly to India. So the data protection bill, I think it has given act in 2023 also. I can be wrong, but this has been applied earlier. But this was passed as an act 2023, and it gives access to Indian individuals, like they can correct, rectify, they can erase the information, or they can completely, they have the right to put an act, like, for example, if your data has been used for some other purposes. So this act has been passed in India, but this is mostly related to your personal information and mostly related to your this does not identify particularly with respect to organization or particularly respect to healthcare. This is particularly for your own data. The last one is PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. This has been designed to ensure that all companies accept, process, and transmit credit card information and make a secure environment. So this is mostly related to e-commerce sectors and financial sectors, how they are saving the information. For example, if you have been putting a credit card information in Amazon, Walmart, or any of the websites, so how are they saving all of those informations? And if those information has been breached or anything related to that, so this kind of frameworks have come into that place. The other one is PDPA. So PDPA mostly used in Singapore. This is mostly similar to GDPR. The other one is Information Security Management, ISMS. This is mostly for the, this is globally recognized, and this is a framework of data security mostly for security management systems. Cyber security law, China. This is again a cyber security law, particularly for the China, where how the organizations have been connected, plus how, for example, if we have some work which is related to China or China data, so this applies there, where if there is security breach or there is security violation, or how are you following the cyber security law with respect to China's data. So these are the case studies. Like I have already discussed a lot of things with respect to Facebook and Cambridge, Equifax, GDPR, Uber data. So regarding the Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, a lot of information with respect to your personal information has been shared. And because of that, a lot of political issues has been happened. Like when the elections were happening, so they used the same data. There was a company called Cambridge Analytica. They used the same data for their political use cases and taking users information with respect to Facebook, and they have been used this information. Similarly, the Equifax, this is mostly related to like credit fraud agencies in USA. GDPR, you already know, like I told you with respect to Google's, like this has phased in Google basically in 2018. So it demonstrates mostly with respect to transparency and compliance with respect to data protection and regulation. So this is the GDPR. Uber's data breach. So particularly Uber is also faced a data breach particularly with respect to hackers, they have covered it up, and all of those things happened in 2016. So because of this, the lot of regulations for every country has been coming up. In India also, a lot of regulations has been coming up with respect to data security and privacy. Plus, in your organization, particularly if you are working with data, you are working with data science. So I would say first thing is what kind of data it is you have to identify, and the organization should do these things, particularly the education and training with respect to the team members. Like they can put up training with respect to data privacy, like this kind of data and how this should be encrypted or how this should be encoded or decoded with respect to cloud, with respect to your particular personal information, or how you are using the data on cloud, those kind of things. Incident response plans, like for example, there may be a possibility that your information has been breached, and what should we do after that, whom should we inform, which legal or which government institutions we need to inform after that if the data has been breached. Those should be have the organization should be having a plan around that. Regular audits and monitoring. So this comes with two topics basically. Either you can monitor the data plus the auditing. So do a regular security audits and everything, monitor the data. Plus, if you are having a website, you are having a data platform, keep it particularly frameworks where you can monitor that, like who is using that, what's the user ID, or particularly you can audit your website on a particular login or a particular uh, thing. Like for example, in the last speaker has told, like you have to accept some consent and security policies. So something like that, you can accept it from you can get a consent from user and collect their information with respect to their users IP or something, so that you can monitor them or detect, like if particularly the audit information you can collect. Policy documentation, you can put it up. So particularly uh, every organization works, I think, with the stock information of particular data or finance information of a particular user. So they can put up a policy documentation if they are using that data for some different use cases, or just emailing with respect to that data. Like if they are using that data for emails also, they should be putting up a policy documentation. But plus, the policy should also be around as, security concerns. For example, if you are developing any project with respect to data, there should be a policy with respect to every project where the architecture of that particular data project should be decided with the info security team. They will review the design and security, how the data will be transferred to which system, and then the organization will know, oh, this data and this architecture is secure, and then they will go ahead with the development. Access control is simple, where you can put up access control on everything with respect to cloud, with respect to your website, and only the particular number of users will have those information. So we can limit the data access with respect to project, with respect to whom should be using that website. So these are some of the important points, and the regulations what I have discussed are some of them, but every country has different regulations on different data, and how should we following it, I have already discussed with respect to that. So that's all about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuldeep, for the session. It was really insightful. We were able to know more about data privacy frameworks plus case studies and the steps to be followed as an organization. Everything was really insightful. We have a question in the Q&A. What are the challenges with respect to data localizations with DPA in India? You would like to...
I have not used the Indian data, but data localization, I think when you are using any of the data with respect to like Aadhaar or any other information, I think that should be encrypted. But how the DPDPA is used, particularly with respect to Indian organization, that I'm still not sure.
Okay, thank you. We just have one more question. Like in summary session, you mentioned about regular audit and monitoring. Is it an internal or external audit In either case, it's cost to the company, but then how to justify this cost to the management?
Okay, so this the company has to handle anyway. So particularly, I have worked mostly for the US and UK companies, so I know about that. So particularly there, the government put up a regulations where they have to audit a lot of things with respect to companies. So they send a notice, or particularly they have been decided like they have to send audit information to all the government agencies. So the audit with respect to government is compulsory. Either you will face a legal action, or particularly you will not be able to run a company in that particular state in US. So in US it's regular, and particularly you have to share information. Plus for the personal audit, I was talking particularly on the website audits, or particularly the data audits and data freshness, where you can particularly know which user is information using what kind of information and at what time they have used the information. So at least you will have the history of the information. If the breach has been happened, you will know the point of contact, or you will know the point from where the breach has been happened. So those are like the personal auditing. I don't think the cost would be more. You just have to put up a logs and a monitoring. So it's so particularly with respect to management, you can define it with respect to a legal action. So if you are facing any legal action with respect to a breach or data, that would be more costly as compared to what regular audits you are doing in your company.
Okay. Yep. So almost we're good with, okay. We are good with the Q&A. So thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us for the SecConf talk. So yeah, so all the audience, so I'll kindly request you to spare a moment to share your feedback with the feedback link shared. So once again, thank you, Kuldeep, for your time.